Hello, I'm John Laspina, the Carnivore teacher, and I have another wonderful interview for you. This is Thomas Pruett, a man whose journey is nothing short of inspiring. Thomas has faced unimaginable challenges from childhood bullying and early struggles with food addiction to a long battle with type 2 diabetes and multiple foot surgeries, including amputations. He cared for his mother through her cancer battle, endured housing instability, and even faced life-threatening infections, all while fighting to reclaim his health. Despite it all, Thomas has turned to the carnivore lifestyle, which has dramatically improved his mobility and blood sugar levels. With grit, honesty, and heart, Thomas continues to push forward, drawing strength from this community and his own resilience. His story reminds us all that healing is possible even after decades of damage and when we take back control of our health. Thomas, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, John. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. To begin with, can you take us back to when you first realized something needed to change in your life health-wise?
Oh God, that's a good question. I think that I always had that indication, inkling, that something was not exactly perfect, you know. But I think when I started, but even then, you still kind of like listen, like, oh well, the doctor knows what he's talking about, or these people, they're trained to know exactly what to do for diabetes. They know exactly what I need to be doing, and I think we all go through that. I think we all go through this naivete that of that the doctor knows. And in a lot of ways, the doctor does know. It's not like I'm saying that the doctor himself is ignorant, but a lot of times these doctors are fighting against a lot of um, corporate, you know, discourse and everything. And and they're only human. And I always say that there's like definitely two different types of doctors, especially the ones that know that they're doing the wrong thing. There's the ones that stay with it and they keep on doing the wrong thing, even though they know that meat is good for us and that and that carbs can be very problematic, but they stay with it because they're afraid of either losing their promotion, they're afraid of losing their jobs, they're afraid of losing their Porsche, whatever it is. They're afraid of something. And then you get people like Dr. Barry, you get people like Dr. Chafee that saw the truth and said, this is messed up. And I'm sure Dr. Barry would come up with a better word than messed up. And, and that we need to do something about it. And that they do. So to me, there's those two different of that category of the people that do know that meat is good, and then you get the middle of the road that are still in the system. But if you actually figure it out, they're like, okay, I support you. I'm not going to push you against it, and, and I think that might have helped a little bit in my journey to see the difference. The first person I ever watched, was Sarah Halberg. I know she passed away a while ago from cancer or something like that. At least I found that out later on. But she was actually the woman that did a TED Talk. And I think if you never saw it, I think you would like the video. She did a TED Talk saying about how fat actually helps with insulin resistance and brings it down, and how carbs are pretty much the cause of it rising. So in essence, it made sense to me. There was like this logic that came from that was like, okay, well, fats bring it down, carbs bring it up. There's no simpler thing about that. Like we complicate it so much, but it really comes to such a simple concept, So eat more fat, and saturated fat. So eat more red meat, eat more fat, eat more whatever it takes, increase your fats and decrease your carbs. Now, the lower you go on your carbs, the better off you are. So it just kind of like went to a gradual thing, and it just made sense throughout the whole journey, and every time I'd watch the videos, I'll still stay with like the carbs here and there. It was harder to kind of break them away like totally. But as time went on, my brain thought was, well, if I feel this good with like this much carbs, how would I feel with this much carbs? If I feel
Right.
this good, you know, and if I increase my fats this much, how much better will I feel if I increase it a little bit more? Now, fat, you kind of have to be careful because you do kind of make a lot of trips to the porcelain throne, and I do still make those trips. I look at it as, you know, they're not like horrible trips, and I look at it as my body healing, my body getting rid of all the bad stuff that's there. So I don't look at it as a bad thing that I'm merely going to the bathroom, you know, as much as, because you're always told in carnivore that you don't go that much, and that didn't really happen with me.
Well, there's
But
also the unspoken completion of that statement is at the
yeah,
beginning in the adjustment period, you're
yes,
trying to find out how much fat, because we're not used to eating this way, right? So
yeah,
we have too much saturated animal fat, and there's not enough bile, and it just comes out in our poop and it's waterier.
of
But if
course,
you don't have
yeah,
enough, yes, it could be stiff, and some people get
yeah,
constipation. And that's the really cool part is
yeah,
you can find where you're
yeah,
supposed to adjust, and you can have a normal
right.
bowel movement really
And
even at the beginning. You just need to know the
there's sort of a
concept.
value to that, you know.
Yeah.
That being said, there's sort of a value to it that people don't, you know, they just look at like, oh, I'm going too much. And you know, it's funny, you know, like I have somebody I know, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but he complains that he goes, you know, like, because I help him out with food, and I give him, you know, I make him chicken and stuff like that. He's not carnivore in any way, but he'll complain that he's going to the bathroom too much, and of course he blames it on carnivore. Even though I only feed him chicken, I don't think there's enough fat content in chicken to really
What else is
do
he
anything.
eating though?
Well, he's eating the vegetables and everything,
Oh, he's eating
so
that's all the
I know
fiber
why it is.
coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is he complains about going, but then he wants to eat more fiber to go. So it's sort of like a catch-22 there,
It's
you
that
know.
myth that's in his head, that recording
Right,
of I have to have fiber, I have to have fiber.
right. And
Yeah,
he's just not realizing that,
yeah,
you know, it's like they kind of cause each other's problems in a way, you know. So
yeah.
I try to help him as much as I can, but you know, he's an adult,
Mhm.
and I have to be on my journey. You know, if I can help him along my journey with inspirations and stuff like that, all the better.
And
But
he's watching you, he's
yeah,
observing you, and
yeah,
that you don't realize how that long term, the little seeds are planted, and he may say it's, you know, he may argue with you or whatever, but it's going in.
yeah.
It's going
As I
in.
improve, he
Absolutely.
sees that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
that's my goal for everybody. My wish for everybody, not even goal. My wish for everybody that they see how well I'm doing.
Mhm.
I focus on myself, and then as I go along, you know, it's like sort of like the obvious is there. You know.
Tell us, all right, this is 2025, all right?
Yes.
And I've spoken with you before. Tell us where you were in 2018, 2019, 2020, like when you were taking care of your mom.
Well, I think it'd be better to go. I mean, obviously, I was diabetic and I was having issues in 2018, 2019. But that time I was still working. I was working for a tuxedo company at that time. I used to actually produce tuxedos for
Hmm,
rentals and stuff like that. So I was the guy that you'd be wearing a tuxedo for your daughter's wedding or something, you
okay.
know.
Yeah.
And but I did have some like walking problems. Like my feet would always swell, you know. But it was sort of like in retrospect, I'm noticing that to have been a problem. But I didn't really have any big problems until I worked for auto car sales, and that's when my foot first um, bursted. You know, like when we first found out about the diabetic foot ulcer. You know, and that was the beginning of the end, so to speak.
Now you knew you were diabetic at that point and you were on
Oh, I was
insulin?
diabetic for about 20 years. Yeah, I was
Oh,
30 years
sorry.
old when I
You were
started.
diagnosed as a type 2 20 years ago,
Yeah,
more than 20 years ago. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, but at that time, when I first started out, my blood sugar was about 325, 395 when I first found out.
Wow.
And I don't remember what my A1C was back then. I probably had it checked, but you know, at that time they probably really didn't reveal it to me, and I didn't know to ask about it. So I'm guessing it was high, but I don't know how high, you know. But when I got diagnosed, with the foot ulcer, back about 5 years ago, I'd say, like before my mom passed away. But my mom passed away in 2021, so I definitely found out about it when she was still alive. And I found out at that time my A1C was 13.5. And that's really when I started to really know what the A1C was. I didn't really know too much about it. I probably heard about it, but I didn't really know too much about like the 3-month rule and all that stuff, And now I found out that that's the minimum they check. Most of the time they check like every 6 months. They don't even check it every 3 months, But I think for my case, I think 3 months is more necessary. I think when you're really bad, like if you're not, like if you didn't reverse your diabetes or didn't reverse your insulin resistance, I think every 3 months is should be more mandatory.
And that's because the A1C is it's a 3-month it's a picture of how your sugar is glycating the hemoglobin of your red blood cells, and that's why they do it every 3 months, because it's not, you're getting a more accurate reading that way.
Yeah, I mean, once I'm better, then if they want to do it every 6 months, that's fine. I can care, But I wanted to get to at least 5.4 before we actually went to that animal. And right now it's at 7.6. Now, when I first started, like I've said, I've done carnivore on and off for quite a while, as you know. But I didn't consider myself fully carnivore until I joined the communities. And the first thing I did was on January 1st, I started doing the chats with one of Carrie Mann's lives. And that's how it kind of started. So I started right on January 1st.
Good.
Now, unfortunately, it made it my 3-month time. It was April 1st. So it was like April Fool's Day was my 3-month period.
What year is this now? It's not this year.
2025. Just
25.
now.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I consider 2025 to be the best year of my life.
From December 31st, your A1C was 13 something, and now it's 7 something.
No. Okay. Let me go back a little bit. I'm sorry. As of when I did December 31st, my A1C actually, it was 13.5 back when I had my foot first start problem.
Okay.
So that was back in like 2019, 2020,
All right.
way back when. Fast forward a little bit, it kind of like jumped around because of me doing carnivore. I had some good times and some bad times, And when I had my infection and everything like that, it was at 10.2. Now, when I say the infection is because it's sort of a separate entity than the amputations. It sort of happened around the end of my toe amputation, but I actually had it where I had an infection right inside my spine.
Oh, not your foot. This is your spine?
Not my foot. This was inside my spine.
And infections raise blood sugar because your body is...
Of course.
Blood sugar goes up for that reason. It had nothing to do with your diet.
Right.
Necessarily.
And that's sort of an interesting story in itself. That kind of tells a little bit about the hospital system. I actually had to go 3 times to the hospital before they even looked at my back.
What caused a spinal infection, you think?
That I don't know. I think the foot did. That's my theory. Okay. Well, the reason why I think that is because, I mean, think about it for 1 second. I have this open wound. At this time, I had 4 toes that were just removed.
Wow.
Now, originally, the doctor was supposed to close up the wounds and stitch it, and then let it heal. And it was going to take supposed to take no more than 2 months to heal, which was one of the reasons why I was like, okay, if I had to get rid of the toes, I reluctantly get rid of them, but at least you're going to be doing what you said you're going to do. Well, he never did that. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad doctor or anything like that. I'm guessing he had his reasons, and I really don't know what the reasons are because he probably told me, but I just didn't understand what he was saying, and that's possible. I'm not exactly medically, but he ended up leaving it open. So it sort of looked like hamburger meat, it was left open this whole time. It was wrapped and had the wound back and everything like that. But you can't tell me that almost a year and a half of having a wound open like that isn't going to cause some infection to come in.
Wow. Did they
You know,
ask? Did they tell you the reason they wanted to leave it open? Like,
like I
is that
said,
you have to heal better or something?
he probably did, but it probably was like one of those like just elusive like back. It's already done. There's nothing I can do about it.
Oh gosh.
So I mean, yeah, I could get mad at him and I could do this and do that and do this, but I wanted to focus on healing.
Right.
And I just didn't feel like having these problems. And he's been pretty good since then, so pretty supportive, pretty good. And and I think he just he said sometimes that I think pretty much the answer he gave me was sometimes things happen during the operating room that you just have no choice, and that's just how it is.
Wow.
But since I was put out, I have no idea what happened in the operating room. So
Is your
who
foot
would
completely
want to be
healed
awake for
now?
that?
Is everything completely healed where the toes came off and the infection? Is that like at this moment in
Oh yeah.
time, is everything okay down there?
As far as I can see, yes, it's all sealed up.
All right. So you can just put a sock
Um,
on and a shoe and
yep,
you walk as
I
best
have a
you can.
special shoe
You have a
that
special shoe.
actually has an insert inside it,
Okay.
that actually
To
fills in the
fill the
space.
space. Okay. Interesting.
Right.
So
Yeah.
tell me, I'm just curious. I don't know if the audience cares, but I'm curious. I'm not
Well,
going to hold up my foot, but like, so you had 4 toes amputated.
I
Which
have
toe?
I had all 5 toes amputated.
All 5. First,
I
I
had the
remember you said
one
you had
by
1 done,
itself. Yeah, I had
and
the one
then
would be equivalent to your thumb, and
all
then I
right.
had the other 4 after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they just take off where the toe is, or did they go further,
I think they went further in.
a little
They didn't.
further in?
They probably didn't do it as much as like having like a round ball, but it's I think he went further than just the toes.
Okay. And
Definitely.
can you walk? Do you walk without a limp?
I
Can
do
you
have a small limp,
a
and
little
I
bit?
sort of blame the shoes on that, because because they're just the way they're shaped. I was telling a guy today. He was asking me a little bit about what happened, and I told him what happened, and I said that the biggest problem I have right now is I always feel like my feet, my shoes, are pushing me are pushing me off, like almost like a springboard.
Oh,
Like whenever I walk, I kind of feel like there's like too much cushion. I don't know if it's because my feet change sizes from swelling and stuff like that. That sometimes they're too big for the shoes, sometimes it's too small for the shoes, and just
um,
But the one thing that I have a hard time with is running. I never really was an avid runner, but I was always able to run. Like I just never ran, but I mean, I was able to run, and that's the one thing that I've kind of like right now. If I'm in my shoes and I run outside, best analogy would be Tom and Jerry cartoon, the housewife that runs on the table and she sees Jerry, and like kind of like exactly that's kind of how I run. Like I can like run in place, but I can't like go out.
oh, all
But I
right.
did
Hey,
find out that I can run a little bit better without my shoes.
you probably get better at. Oh, that makes sense. I mean, because you
So,
don't have the shoe, and it's the one shoe, but the 2 shoes
well,
match, and
both
you have them
shoes
specially made
have
for
the
you. They
cushion
made it.
in them. It's just one doesn't have the filler. That's all.
Okay. All right. Just
But don't forget the other foot has the heel damage.
right. Oh, you
So both
mentioned that.
feet have damages. It's just
Wow.
one's a little bit more obvious.
Uh-huh.
I have about 25%. I'd say about 25% of my bone removed from my left heel.
All this from
So
diabetes,
yeah,
from
diabetes and neuropathy. I mean, there's a lot of theories I have, a lot
neuropathy.
of things that I blame, that kind of put fear into me. Now I don't know if it's actually true or not, but have you ever like had a fear of something, and even if it's not true, it's like, okay, I still don't want to use this because I just I'm still not going to like jump off the high board, even though I'm told that it's not unsafe for
It's yeah.
and
Yeah.
you just don't. Well, that's one of the reasons why I don't really do metformin, because I read some things about metformin that I don't know. Again, I'm not a doctor and I don't know if they're true or not, but my fear is still there, and it doesn't really matter if they're true or not. But in my informational process, I found that the metformin technically lowers your B12 vitamins.
Probably.
And B12 is connected to nerve damage. It's connected to your nerve functions. And so I connected nerve function to neuropathy, thinking like, okay, I'm going to get neuropathy anyway. But obviously, the metformin increased the chances of me getting it faster, and then the neuropathy caused, and then through neuropathy, I
Did
got.
you weigh the difference of having a high blood sugar versus having
Oh,
the
I did. Yeah.
neuropathy?
I mean, it was just
This
it's
is
just like,
always side effects of drugs, no
I
matter
mean,
what.
I think I just did the like A equals C, A equals B and B equals C, so A must equal C type thing,
Right, because you can always
and
supplement with the B vitamin that
you
it's
can, and I did. In the
okay.
beginning, I did take the B vitamins, but it was still, I mean, I didn't do that. I didn't find out for a few years after I was taking. So
Right.
obviously damage was done, and, like I might have stopped the train, but I still did a lot of damage of all the crashing you do behind it, the runaway
Wow.
train.
Wow.
And, and again, I'm probably not right. There's probably a lot of people that disagree with that, but it's my body, and if metformin scares me, I don't take metformin. I'm
Go by
sorry.
your gut instinct.
Yeah. I mean, just like I hate it when people arguing about taking a statin. If I tell the doctor that I don't agree with statins, and it bothers me. It turns my stomach to even think about taking a statin. Then they should honor that and say, okay, then we're not going to do a statin. I think you should, but we're not going to. I'm
What
not
does
going
your
to.
doctor has your doctor said
Oh,
I'm
oh,
putting you on a statin and you
my
say no? What does he say?
my doctor harassed me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, my doctor actually took 20 minutes or more. I forget the time, but it was at least 20 minutes
Wow.
of pushing. So I finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, fine, write the script,
Yeah, and then just don't fill it.
and well, I end up having to fill it because what they do is they call in the pharmacist themselves, and they have the pharmacist fill it.
And then you
And
don't
I
take
live
it.
right above
Don't
the
pick it up.
pharmacist, right? So I had to take the next step and actually pay. It was like $5. I paid for it and just
Pay
threw it
for it
away.
and throw it away. Wow. See, my
Um,
doctor, let me share with you real quick. My doctor, same thing. You have to, my HDL is super high,
mhm.
but I'm a lean mass hyper responder because all my other markers are like, it's just high and everything else is in great shape. So I told him that. He said, well, you have to get a CAC test. We got to check your arteries. I'm like, great, do it. My CAC score came back at a 0. He was
Great.
blown away. He said, you still have to take a statin because they're like, brainwashed. They're
Yeah.
just trained. And so I said, I'm refusing. And I said, you write that down in my notes that I refused. And he said, okay. And then he told me, he said, I'm going to write this down. We get audited. I have to tell you to cover my ass that I encouraged you, that you literally refused, and everything's good now. We still have a good relationship, but that's how it was with my doctor. Isn't that
And
interesting?
that's actually a pretty good, to me, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
That your doctor was willing to kind of be like, okay, I did what I had to do,
Right.
and that we ended it right there. We had that like that cap marker. It's the doctors that kind of like keep on pushing, keep on pushing, keep on
Those are the
pushing.
ones you fire and find a new
Right,
one if
right.
they keep
And lucky
going
for
so bad.
me, I'm
Yeah.
part of a clinic. So my process was I didn't have to fire him. What I did was I just called the clinic and I complained about how pushy he was. Not really the fact
Oh,
that he pushed
ooh.
statins. I just complained
20
about,
minutes trying to convince you. That's a
yeah.
lot of their time that
Well,
they could be with other patients. I'm surprised he did that. Wow.
here's an analogy for you and for everybody listening. Okay, this is how it felt. Have you ever been at Christmas, right? Especially when you and me were kids. Have you ever
Yes.
been at Christmas and you go to the Christmas mall, go to the mall, and there's those kiosks, and there's that one stand that sells lotion or something, and it has nothing to do with anything. It's like you're not going to normally get this, and how they push you
Right.
and push you and push you.
Right.
That's how the doctor was. So to me, a
Sales,
doctor
like
should not
sales.
be that pushy.
Yeah.
Right.
Pushy. And you
You
know what? They get kickbacks. A lot of doctors, they
Yeah,
get
they
all
do.
these people that come in to sell them their price. You have to
I
sell
mean, he
this
was
many
proving
pounds.
that point. Like other
Yeah,
doctors probably do the same thing,
I think you're
but they're
right.
not so obvious that you may or may not recognize that. He
Mhm.
definitely brought that to the front to the front window, you
All right,
know.
let's talk about we talked about your diabetes and your amputations. Let's talk about the weight loss you've experienced since you started carnivore. What was your
Okay.
heaviest weight, and what are you now? And
Well, I'm gonna be completely honest. I
yeah,
lost weight a long time before I even went carnivore. When I went more like keto and started doing
well, you still lowered your
exercise.
carbs. Yeah,
Um, but carnivore obviously is helping me shape up. Like even in the 4 months, like I think my like certain things have better fitted me. Like I when I first started in January, I was a 2X shirt, and I don't know exactly what my waist was, but my belt is 4 notches down.
how tall are
Now
you?
I'm 5'9.5".
5'9.5". Just so we know the dimensions. All right, you went four
And
notches in the belt. That's
about
fantastic.
four
Since
notches in the belt.
January, which is 4 months, 5 months.
Yes. And my shirt size has gone from 2X to pretty much XL, but now I am able to put on a large t-shirt.
Large, great.
But the thing is, it just doesn't look right. It looks kind of like those guys that just wear their shirts are too small for them,
Your
but they
body's
keep
still
wearing them.
redistributing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
just
exactly.
started.
Like I still have the big belly. You can kind of see the, more of my dimensions that I don't want people to see, so to speak. Like I don't, like right now I'm wearing a 2X, but these are one of my old shirts. So, you have to kind of like go shopping.
I hear you.
And, but, and I feel like my face is a lot thinner. If you look at some old pictures of me, you'll see
I
my,
saw one
like,
you sent me. Yeah.
even when you saw me, when we met each other through Nia, through that panel, if you look at my face, it was a lot thicker,
I hear you.
a lot more. And I felt I had a lot more like drawnness, I guess you could say, like just like I don't think I looked healthy at that time. I still probably have long ways to go on looking healthy, but
Hey, progress, I mean, you're looking back and even like 6 months to a year from now, like we said before, you're going to look
yeah,
back and say, who was that guy?
yeah,
Wow, so many changes, so much improvement.
yeah,
And
step by step and onward and
you
upper.
can't unring this bell. Once we start learning how this can help us and how healthy we feel, we start tasting good
Yeah,
health and what it really feels like to just feel good emotionally too. We don't want to go backwards.
yeah,
And sometimes you test yourself. You're like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
and I'm going to try this, and then you really sense how that made you feel, and you're like, no, 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 I was right. I can't have that, and that's a normal human thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, just carnivore. I mean, carnivore. I don't really have to. I mean, there's an old movie. Actually, it's not an old movie. It was Sister Act 2, where there's a
Ah,
scene where
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the nun says, "I don't really need to taste the donut to know it's sweet." Well, I don't have to every day get the benefits of carnivore to know that it's working.
Right.
I just know. And I think most of us, once we go through it, once we go through that, especially that 90 days, I think you just begin to know. You may not know exactly where it's working. It may not be working exactly where you were expecting it to or where you were hoping it to. Like a lot of people go in for weight loss and they
Right.
don't always lose the weight, you know, and that's kind of tragic. Like, like with my mom, she was keto, she was doing very well, but she stopped because she wasn't losing any weight. Now she also had people behind her saying, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it,"
Yeah, that
which is
too.
stupid in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
But because I can only be one person, I can tell her to do it, but she's not really seeing the results.
So most people
And
start to lose the weight. That's a lot of people. That's
yeah,
their because just look at all the
yeah. And
diets
I
being
did.
suggested.
I lost a lot of weight when
That's
I
how I
did it.
started too, right? But then
But
you
unfortunately,
realize the other
you know,
things that it does, right?
but I think what I kind of agree with Dr. Kiltz. I think your body is, as you heal, you'll lose the weight.
Mhm.
So I think what it is I think a lot of people lose the weight because they probably at that time didn't need to heal as much. There probably was healing that needed to be done, but probably the numbers. And with her having her cancer, the body was probably focusing more on the cancer and
On the
healing
healing,
her from that
right?
than it was really helping her lose the weight. So I think if she stuck with it, I think eventually the weight would have come down. And I
Yeah.
think I don't know if it would have saved her life, but I definitely think it would have prolonged it,
She
you
would have
know.
felt better too.
Yeah. Oh, and she did. She was actually these are the benefits she had. She was able to get rid of the cane, get rid of the walker and cane, and walk up and down steps.
That's huge.
Now, before that, she had like a sort of a vertigo that every single time she even looked down the stairs, she would feel dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
She never felt dizzy. She was able to walk around the track, like at least once with no problem, full time around the track. And track is like divided into like 3 sections, like 1 mile, 2 miles.
That's impressive, actually. Wow.
And she'd walk with me, and we'd walk slow, and then I'd do a second walk because I was a little bit faster at that time, so I could walk a second time. But we would walk. She was able to go to her daughter's house and spend time with her grandkids. At that time, her grandkids were not 18 and 21, so they were a lot younger. Play with the dog, all that stuff. Everything was wonderful. She was doing really well. And she was keto. So she still had her vegetables. She still had, but she had a couple people that were like, well, it's not good for you to do this. You should not eat so much red meat. You should not do this. You should not do that. And she came from a vegan background for a while.
Oh.
And how I actually got her off of being vegan, she felt guilty. That she loves cows, and she felt guilty about eating them. So what I did was I said, well, do you think it's going to help you? And she goes, I think meat would help me a lot, but I can't do it because I don't want to hurt I feel like I'm hurting the cows. I said, well, what if you thank them every time you ate? And then she goes, that might help. So what I did was I got a painting that I still have here. It was in another room though. I got a painting of a cow from Walmart, like a canvas painting, put it on the wall, right on the wall, right across from where we eat. And I said, okay, every time you eat, and you know what, have it represent everything, every type of animal, chicken, whatever. Every time you eat meat, thank the cow. Say, thank you for giving me some health, and thank you for helping me out. And that worked. That got her off.
Great. That's great that you found that for her, and it worked for her. That's great.
Right.
Somebody listening to this may be in a very similar situation and say, I'm going to try that with my mom. That's really great.
Sometimes you just got to think. You got to think outside the box.
Outside the box.
And it worked. I can't guarantee it's going to work for anybody else, but it worked for her, and that's the main thing. It doesn't hurt to try it, and everything. But she basically, she got off it because she didn't lose the weight, and that was her. But I think it was healing her. I think she was getting better, but as soon as she stopped, then things came back, and it didn't take long for her to demise, and eventually, unfortunately, she passed away. But and we all think about it. Matter of fact, this hat is in commemory of her, believe it or not. This was actually her hat. She got it in New York. A lot of people connect it to Donald Trump, but it has nothing to do with him. He was not even thinking about office back when she got it when I was like a teenager. And so I wear it in her memory. I wear it in her honor, That's
nice.
So whenever you see the hat, that's that's it.
That's good.
I mean, it's not like I definitely need a hat. I mean, I do have hair and stuff. Even if I didn't, I can go without.
Yeah, more than I do, buddy.
Actually, I think color is starting to come around here. So it was actually a little bit further back, but I think there's some color coming in.
Amazing. Can we talk about the foods you used to eat before you went on carnivore, like what you had in a normal day versus what you have now in a normal day?
Okay. Going way back, right? I always ate meat because there's never anything that would ever get me away from a steak or, I mean, that was like, you go to a steak restaurant, but you always had everything with it.
True. All the sides.
And I still love a good baked potato. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I would be really, blowing smoke up your butt if I actually told that I hated baked potato and did this and did that. No, I still love it. Sorry about that. Every once in a while it attacks.
Sorry.
I still love it. I just know it doesn't love me. And as long as I know that, I'm more reluctant to have it. It's like, oh, I think snakes are cool, but I'm not going to exactly go and like go hand first into their mouth, And, so I would have those kind of foods. I'd still have the breads. I still have like, burgers, So the transition wasn't really that hard for me. All I had to do was be like, okay, let me get rid of the carbs. So could I have a burger without the bread? How would that be? Oh, this isn't too bad. Oh, how is it without the lettuce and tomato? I don't really like to have that stuff anyway. Oh, this isn't too bad. Yes, I still have ketchup, still have mustard, still have cheese with it. Eventually, you know what? I want to wean off the ketchup, because there's so much sugar in it.
And they
Can I
sell
replace it?
other ketchups without the high
Oh, they
fructose
do.
corn syrup and the
They do.
dextrose. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
want it, you want to transition, you can do that.
And I did that for a while, like I switched over. But the thing is sugar-free ketchup and what you're talking about is not cheap, I mean,
It's true. You're right. It's 4 times the price. You're absolutely right.
So it's easier for me to just be like, you know what? I do want a condiment. Now, after a while, my biggest condiments was mustard, which I would do mostly on like I still did things like cheddar brat. I wasn't really looking too much at the seed oils at the time. I was just like, eat meat, eat meat, eat.
Right.
I kind of did the Dr. Berry thing.
That's better to get less bad. Yep.
Right. It's less bad. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would eat all that stuff. And at first I did need to have bread with the cheddar with the hot dogs. So the cheddar brats, for some reason, I didn't have to have the hot bread. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was like, it just didn't feel like a hot dog as much.
You ever made a chaffle?
No. Oh, no, I haven't. I've heard of them, but I haven't made them yet.
Oh,
no.
God, it's so super easy. Egg and cheese on a little waffle iron, and then you put your it makes a waffle, but there's no dough or flour in it.
Now, would you
put the hot dog in there?
Put
the hot dog in there, a little bit of yellow mustard. Oh my God.
Well, let me ask you a question. I don't have waffle irons, but could you do it on like a small skillet and do it like a pancake?
Probably, yeah, because it's the ingredients that matter. You're just not going to have the texture of the waffle, the
right.
grabs.
You just won't have those grooves, basically.
Exactly. Just make a gloppy, thick mixture with one egg and as much shredded cheese that makes it kind of real thick.
Yeah.
Cook it.
You know who I think makes chaffles all the time is Aaron Booby Goats.
Yes, yeah. A lot of people. I discovered this, and I'm like, this is the best thing. This is just a great discovery here. You can use it for hamburger buns, hot dog buns, and if you're used to the bread and you just can't give that up, or the texture thing. That's
lucky for me, I was able to give it up. So
and it's carnivore.
I don't really miss the bread. The only reason I had bread at Easter was because. And I did cheat a little bit on Easter.
Family pressure. Yep.
Right. Exactly. And I did have some bread. I had some that focaccia bread or whatever you call it. That like it's like kind of like a harder bread.
Yeah.
I had some of that with some steak over it, and the steak was good, but it probably was still problematic in itself. It probably wasn't cooked, exactly the way, because I love my family, but they just don't get it, And they will. I have patience I have vitamin P with them.
All that's important is that you get it. You get it, and you take care of yourself. And
I know they'll come around. They'll see how good I'm doing, and I know they're going to come around.
Yeah.
They're actually better than they were. Last year would have been a whole different story.
Okay.
Last year, yeah. But now it's sort of like, okay, it's helping you. I mean, they're still at that point now where it's like, okay, it's helping you, but we're different. Our bodies are different. So it's not going to really help us. They're not at that point yet where it's like, oh, wait, this might be what we all should be doing.
It's sad that some people, it takes to the point where like you had to wait till your toes and all that before we really I have to do something or else I'm going to die.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, it has something really bad has to happen before they make a really drastic change. Sadly.
I mean, sadly enough, and this makes it even sadder than what you just said. I think my realization happened before the toes even happened.
Really?
And I'll tell you why that is. But this is how I look at it. If you're going 90 miles per hour in a car, okay, and you then decide to jump out of the car and hit, like just stop the car, turn the engine off and stop the car is still going to have damage along the way.
Yeah,
it will eventually stop, yes, but it's still going to make a lot of damage along the way. So I think even though I was doing better, unfortunately, it wasn't in time to prevent the damage that had happened, and that's how I look. That's sort of how I look at it. Like, okay, this is many years. My toes didn't come off because of the short distance of me stopping.
Oh, it took a lot of years of damage for that to happen.
I mean, and I'm a firm believer. There was a guy that I watched on TV, Dr. Eckert, I think his name is. He used to be
Stan Ekberg.
Stan Eckert. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
He did this video where he shows. Now you'd have to see the video because I'm probably not.
I've seen a lot of his stuff, so I may have seen.
Well, this one video actually shows how your insulin resistance, how your insulin gets worse and worse way before your sugars get worse and worse.
It's true.
Now think about it. Doctors don't look at your insulin. They don't even test fasting insulin. Even when you are diabetic, they never test fasting insulin.
I asked for it and he wouldn't do it for me. I said, I'm going to pay, order the test.
Same with me. And the question is, why do you need it? Why would you have to have it? Like,
I'm paying for it. I'm asking you to do it. Yeah.
Right. Like, can you just give me my what I asked for?
Yeah.
And it's all you could, if they actually tested fasting insulin, according to Dr. Eckert, if they actually tested fasting insulin, you could probably find out that you're on the verge of being diabetic almost 10, 20 years before you actually get it.
You're right.
That damage was happening way back when I was like in my 20s, even though I didn't find out until my 30s, which is still pretty young. Like in the olden days, when you found out you're type 2 diabetic, you usually were about 50, late 50s, early 60s before it even came up for type 2.
Not now. There are children today that are being diagnosed with type 2 because of all the fruit juice and crap they eat.
I have a story that's not about me, but it's going to blow your mind. I actually measured a kid, and now I don't know if he was diabetic or not, but this is a true story. Okay. Now I don't know if there's anything on Instagram about it or anything like that, or on Google or anything, but I measured a kid. I used to do like I said before, I used to do tuxedos for a living, and I did a lot of ring bearers. And in order to do them, it made it easier. We always have to ask the age, because a lot of times age could also determine the mood of the kid too. Like 2 years old. A kid that's 2 year old is going to act different than a kid that's 4 or 5. Okay. So I'm measuring the kid, and I measure him at a 34-inch waist. Okay. When I asked the mother, how old is he? Now I thought maybe it was just a very short, older kid, but even as an older kid, that's a lot. Like 34-inch waist is more of an average adult. Like my height would probably be more of a 34-inch waist, like between a 30 to a 34-inch waist would be normal for me. And I'm a lot older than he ended up being 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
4 years old. And the mother's like, oh, he just likes to eat. He just likes to eat. And I don't think it had anything to do with how much he was eating, but obviously it had to do with what he was eating.
And they start them very young on the Gerber's baby food and the fruit juices and all the things when they're infants.
All this stuff. Exactly. But she was like, oh, we go to McDonald's. He wants to eat all the burgers. He wants to eat all this. And it's like, okay, yeah, he's eating the buns. He's eating the fries. He's eating, and he's stuffing his face. And I remember when I was 4 years old, the last thing that I thought about was eating. I was running around.
Wanted to play. I want to be outside.
I wanted to play. Obviously, as I got older, I was more depressed and I did eat more. But when I was 4, that thought process never came to my head.
You're right.
So
he's getting too much of a reward from food.
Exactly. And the funny thing is like when I was that age, my parents and grandparents kept me like from eating too much. Like, no, Tommy, we're going to make dinner for you, go outside, play, and then come back and we'll call you in. You know, it wasn't like, oh, you want to get a snack? You want to have a, you know, like we really didn't have that too much. You know, occasionally I might like go home and ask for cheese and crackers or something like that. You
Well,
know,
our generation was different back then. My mother used to say, "Kitchen is closed,"
yeah,
and she,
exactly,
and I get
exactly.
yelled at if I went back into
Yeah.
the kitchen.
Another rule that we had at my house is you never came in through the front door. You came in through the back door because you didn't want to track the mud all
Right.
over
Well, we
the.
had that
All
too.
over
Oh
the
boy.
yeah.
Yeah. If you had a mother that was very anal with the cleanliness, like mine
I
was,
didn't have a mother that was anal, but I
mine
did have a
was.
grandmother that was anal, and it was her
Right.
house. So, I mean, my grandmother was so bad. She actually, you know how we do spring cleaning?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she did 4 times a year. Every
Oh,
three
wow.
months, she would do spring
That'd be my
cleaning.
mother. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wipe your
yeah,
feet. Oh my
yeah.
God.
And spring cleaning meant pulling out everything out of the room,
Uh,
scrubbing the walls down and everything, and scrubbing the
wow.
furniture as you bring it in, scrubbing the knickknacks as you bring it in, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, you know, you gotta love your family when you grow up, you know. It's like, oh, that was grandma. Okay.
What, if I can ask, what is your ethnic background? We were raised Italian Catholic, so that was you're
All
describing
right.
my
So
family.
so
Philadelphia, so you're close to us.
mine's a little bit up in the air. On my father's side, his father was actually Cherokee Indian.
Oh,
And so I'm a lot of that. And then my grandmother, my father's side, was from Great Britain. She actually had a very rich background, but she gave that up to be with my grandfather.
oh.
And she ended up being, my father was one of 9 kids.
Hmm.
So he had a pretty big
Big,
family.
yeah.
My mom, however, was adopted.
Okay.
So we have theories about my mom because of what her last name was of her birth name. But we still haven't figured it out. You know, and yes, we could do ancestry and all that stuff, but you know, and there was a time when she wanted to actually, because my grandfather and grandmother were good people, but my grandmother wasn't the best mom in the world. She just didn't really, you know, and she had a lot of her issues when it came to that kind of thing. But so, which would make my mom want to see her real mother, but because of my grandfather, she didn't want to upset my grandfather. But the things we theorize is her last name was Pomeroy. So I heard that Pomeroy is Scottish,
Mm-hmm.
and I also heard that it's French. So I guess if you want to just get realistic, I guess I'm part French, part Scottish, part Cherokee, and part English.
All right.
So I'm sure there's other things mixed in there too, you know. But you know, like my mom's friend used to say, Heinz 57 variety, you know. So
Right, and learn that you're from Central New Jersey. I'm from Philadelphia area, so
yeah,
similar. I hear your
yeah. I mean,
dialect too. We have almost the
I
same dialect as I have.
I have lived in the well when I was younger, like 4 to 7. I lived in Virginia,
Okay.
which is where my parents were divorced for a long time, and my stepmom still lives in Virginia with my stepbrother and my stepsister, and I'm the oldest of all 4 of them, and my but I've lived in Trenton, I've lived in Princeton, I've lived in Maple Shade, which is near, I don't know if you know Cherry Hill
Yeah,
at all.
that's near
Right,
South
roughly
Jersey.
Cherry
Yeah,
Hill.
near
Yeah.
near the bridge. Yeah.
And then I also lived in Princeton. Well, I did say that. I said Princeton. And I grew up in Point Pleasant.
All right.
You know, like I was a clam digger when I was a kid. Didn't do that much digging of clams, but I was a clam digger when I was a
We
kid.
spent every summer in Ocean City, New Jersey, the south
Oh, okay.
end, and from Cape May up to Atlantic City. I know that
Oh,
part
yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'd go to Atlantic City and do things, and you
Yeah.
know, obviously. I haven't been
Wow.
there in a long time, but you know,
What
unfortunately, even though I live by the beach, I haven't been to the beach in a long time because
I'm a South Floridian now. I live in Boca Raton. I never go to the beach.
no,
I could go any
I think when
minute
you
I
live
want.
there,
We don't
you
go.
go a lot less.
Isn't that
Yeah,
funny? Yeah, that's so
yeah. I
weird.
mean, one of the things I'm looking forward to is I can now. The first thing I look forward to that was the most exciting thing for me that most people take for granted is when you have these foot issues, you have them wrap all the time. You
Oh,
have open wounds. So the one thing you can't do is get them wet. You can't get your feet wet. You know, if you do, you have to rewrap it right
you have
away
to
or go to the
dry
hospital
and
and
clean. Yeah, all
do it.
that
Yeah.
work.
So showers were not an option.
You have to put a
Even
baggie
even
on
with
it all the time when you
even with the
shower.
boot, like yeah, I had a shower boot, but even with the boot, either the bandages changed in size all the time, so the boot didn't always cover it, and
Oh,
just a little part gets wet, the whole thing gets wet. It's like
right,
sort of like
right. Pain in the
like
ass.
if you wet the corner of a sponge, the whole sponge is going to get wet.
You're right. Yeah.
And so for almost 2 years, over 2 years, I hardly was able to take a shower. I could
Wow.
sponge bathe,
Right.
but I hardly was. I mean, with here and there, things would go good for a while, and you take your first. But I was still waiting, and to be able to go into the water, definitely could not be.
Right.
So I still haven't gone to my sister. Every time like I seem to heal, I don't really see my sister that often. So unfortunately, the one reason why I would go to see my sister and stay at her house just passed away. She had a Rottweiler that just passed away like about 3-4 days ago. So that reason of going to babysit the dog is not there
It's
anymore.
not there anymore. Yeah.
But I think eventually, I'm sure my sister will let me, like when she opens the pool, I'm sure she'll let me go, take an Uber to her house or something like that, or figure something out.
Mhm.
But it just, there's always that reason,
Right.
like, oh, now I got a reason to jump in the pool, and so I can't wait for that,
Good.
So I mean, there's so many triumphs happening with Carnivore, like people ask all the time, like, okay, how does it help you? Well, it's definitely lowering my insulin resistance slowly
Mhm.
but surely. It's definitely making where I can, like, a year ago I was using, at the very least, I was using a walker to get around. I had special boots in order for my feet in order to help them heal better. Um, I had cast boot. I had actually for a while there. I was wearing this every week. It would get changed, but it was almost like I called it the cement boot, and I would actually draw dead fish on it because it was like swimming with the fishies. You know, so you have to have a little sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so I would draw that or draw different things on it, And in the end, I have a picture of it. I had everybody, because I was like, I think this is the last boot I'm going to be wearing. So I was wrong. I think I wore one more week's worth, but I had my whole family sign the boot, like my niece, my nephew, her boyfriend, stuff like that. And because I thought it just felt right, and so you do these little things that keep your mind, from going crazy, because I mean, it's not easy. The hardest part about everything I went through, you would think it was losing my toes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it wasn't. For me, it was not being able to talk about it. People would shut me, like when I was doing my family, everybody, they loved me, but I don't think they wanted to get the realization of what was going on.
Too
They
much
didn't want
reality for them. Like
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't want to see it.
I think they just didn't. I think it was like, okay, we know, but we don't want to know. Like we want to think of it more as like a bad dream
Wow.
than as reality.
Denial. They're in denial.
Denial. And when you have
It's their
everybody,
problem. Yeah.
and I'm not going to get too much into. I'm not going to get into it really, because it's not really medically derivative. And next time we ever do this again, it would be a story for next time.
Mhm.
But I had a really bad roommate, as you know. And even with that, I think that was the denial thing. They didn't want to know how bad she was. They didn't want to know all the things I was going through. It's probably why they don't look at my channel, because they don't want to hear,
They don't
especially in
want
the beginning.
what you're doing. You do this and you talk about your footing. You talk about, for certain people, it's like putting a mirror up in front of their face. And some people are not ready. They know they have to look at it, but they don't want to see it. It's not an exact mirror, but it opens
I
up the possibility that maybe they're not doing something right, because now you are. I don't want to
right.
see it.
Or even more than that. I think what they're doing, I agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to go one step further than that. It's not really that they're looking at what are they doing. It's like sort of like, where was I to blame with all this?
Well,
And
yeah.
the thing
His family does that.
is they're not to blame. Everything that happened to me,
Tell them
and
that.
I'm gonna put this out there. Everything that happened to me is of my own choice. All the things, even like even subconsciously, you make your choices. Okay. Now I was able to wake up and realize. Now, every single time you listen to the wrong information, you're making a choice to listen to that wrong information. Even if you are slowly learning the truth, you're still making that choice to ignore it. Now, when you don't ignore it anymore and you start being a realization, well, then that choice has changed for you. And you're now making a choice to go towards a better end, a
Very
different
healthy. That's a very healthy outlook.
And so, I mean, I know, like, there was a thing with Dave Mack, one of the comments, the guy said that, he pretty much said, oh, he brought it on to himself. Well, I just want to make sure it's clear that I don't blame anybody on my condition. I don't blame anybody on what happened to me. I chose every time, even now, when I cheat, I choose to cheat. I'm an adult, and if I choose to have a piece of cake, or if I choose to have a baked potato or something, or some, Oreos from downstairs. Now, and a lot of people know, I think, that watch my channel definitely know that I live right above a chocolate shop.
Yeah.
And I choose every day. I go in there, and I do get tempted, but I choose every day, and I have my ways of doing it. I choose every day to say, you know what? Just give me the coffee.
Good.
Now, my biggest cheat would be with the coffee is sometimes I might get half and half, which has a little bit of sugar in it. I get that. But I normally would ask for it if, like, I just feel like having a little bit more than just coffee, or I would ask for it if I knew the coffee's not really fresh. Now, I can kind of go against that and say, okay, just make me a K cup, because if your coffee's like 3 hours old, I'd rather have it fresh by the K cup, and I have all those options. But I've
Yeah.
actually trained the staff pretty well, I might say, at least the
Because you
older
live
staff.
right above them, so they
Right.
know you really
Well, they
well.
know, including the owner. If I
Uh-huh.
ask them for an Oreo cookie, they give me a hard time to get it. Like, it's a lot of work.
That's
And I
great.
did that on purpose.
It's a
Now I have
testament.
other people. I have other people that still push me against it and stuff, but at least I have some people that do support.
Always
You know,
remember that it's not a setback treat or
no,
meal. I mean, it's not a cheat meal. It's a setback meal. You're
right.
choosing to set yourself back. And like you said, you're making the decision to do it.
Which
And
which is sort
we do that. We test ourselves and we're like, I'm gonna have
of,
that Oreo cookie, and you're not gonna have it the next
yeah.
time, the time after
Which
that.
is sort of why, like, I'm kind of like on that balance beam, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
I consider myself full carnivore, like, back in January 1st, like New Year's, new me, and that's when I
Good.
first did the chats with Carrie Mann.
Mhm.
But technically, I was eating all animal products for almost 2-3 years,
Mhm.
and I would just go on it for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then I go off it. And sometimes, like, depending on if I was in rehab or not, that would be the dependence on how long I'd be off it for. But for the most part, I'd be like 3 weeks, and then I'd have an Oreo cookie, and I'd go right back on it again. So that's the momentation that I had. So it depends on how you look at it. Like I say, I think you need the full puzzle, and I think the puzzle piece that was missing. Blah, 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 sorry about that, tongue twi. Was the community. Was being,
Support.
like, I always watched you guys from behind the scenes. I always watched everybody from behind the
And
scenes.
now you're
But
actively engaging.
exactly. And the
Yeah.
more I am engaged, the more I'm doing these interviews, and
Excellent.
now doing my own interviews, which,
Yeah.
thank for yesterday. Um, and I actually have another interview coming up. Somebody actually asked me
Good.
without me actually emailing them. So that's
Good.
actually wonderful.
That's good.
Um, thanks to you and everybody. And it's, to me, that's the thing. If you're starting carnivore and you're having a hard time with it, join something. Join a community. Join something. The community I would suggest, even though I've gotten so many rewards and I'm part of 3 different communities,
Mhm.
the one I suggest is Kilts.
Yeah. His Mighty
Join Dr.
Tribe.
Kilt.
It's actually, you can join for
He's
free,
free.
and then there's other levels that you can get more
Well,
things.
that's
So,
my
yeah,
point.
this is free.
He doesn't
Dr.
cost
Berry's, you
anything.
have to join, you have to pay money, and
Yeah.
it's not
I mean,
it's
I'm lucky. I'm
Mhm.
very lucky. I started off free with Carrie,
Mhm.
and I pretty much I do pay for him monthly, and then I actually start off free with an email that I sent her with, and I don't know how well it is that I should be repeating this, but it's still a nice offer and still very generous. But I actually, because of my story, I actually get free membership from Bella for lifetime.
Oh, nice.
So
Lifetime.
that's why I'm part of 3 different memberships. I pay
That's
for
great.
one of them. And then I also pay for Mitch. I'm part of the Mitch. I'm a member of Mitch's tribe.
Okay.
So, Old Guy Carnivore.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that everybody knows who Mitch is. I mean, I do, and you probably do, but not everybody.
Yeah, not everybody knows these names. We're coming to the top of the hour. This has
Yes, I
been
do apologize.
fantastic. Oh my gosh. Tell people where they can find you, your YouTube channel, any other social media sites.
Of course. My YouTube handle is Target Prime Rib.
Target Prime Rib, right?
Right. Pretty much how it sounds, Target Prime Rib, like just target for that prime rib, And on Instagram, it's tpruett42, which obviously you can tell when I actually opened that channel up, So I did that, and I do have a Facebook account too, but I'm not
10 years
sure.
ago, right? 10, 11 years ago, right?
At least, yes.
All right.
And then I do have a Facebook account. But I don't remember I think it's Thomas Pruett 35, but I'm not really.
I'm going to look for you.
So just look
get
for
a friend
Thomas
request. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we are already following each other on Facebook, believe it or not.
I have 2 Facebooks. I have it's all carnivore, and I talk about diet in my book that I wrote and all this stuff. And then I have my other one that's for friends and family, and I almost never talk about carnivore because I started going crazy about it and they all ignored me. They didn't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. And then as soon as I mentioned a trip I took or something, then they're all chiming in. Oh, how was your trip? How was your trip? I'm like, oh, but I just bought this grill and made this steak. Silence. So I'm like, all right, I want to keep in touch with my friends and family. I'm going to make a business Facebook page. And that's what I do. I have 2.
Yeah. I think I'm following your carnivore part of it.
All right, good.
Because I got it through Dante and all the people that through him starting, and then I think it just. Yeah. But I think I remember befriending you, and I think
go from there. All right. I
think I could be wrong. I mean, there's so many that
we found each other, and that's part of community, and I didn't realize how important being actively involved, not just a bystander.
And I'm trying to do some TikTok videos, but I'm still learning on TikTok.
I won't do that.
I do TikTok more for my niece. She does a lot of videos, but every once in a while, well, what I do is I'll do a short on Instagram. Well, I might just be like, okay, add it to TikTok, and I'll just do it that way.
Yeah, you could do it that way too. Yeah,
but no, I just, and I mean, I'm actually trying something new, with my personal lives as well. So, I mean, this is an influence through you and through Carrie and through Mitch and through everybody that's helped me, but I'm still learning and you were a very big help yesterday. So I appreciate that.
Good. I'm glad.
But it's a learning process, and there's a certain vision that I have for it. So my biggest problem is getting people to realize it's my vision, because I think you noticed that I'm pretty lackadaisical in that particular way, it just in the way of just not being as assertive for myself, and I'm learning,
When you mentioned, not in this interview, but the one that didn't work, because this is a redo, people don't know that when they're watching this, you mentioned that, you had trouble standing up to your family and the pressure, eat this food, and you just ate it. And I'm hoping that you grow in that area, because I'm the opposite. I'm like, no, and let me tell you why. And then they're like, oh, he's going to start. All right, forget it. And they walk away from it.
And I
refuse to put this
my own lives is going to help me with that. I think I really do. It's going to help give me the premise and the platform, the sounding board to do that, and and just really, the premise I'm trying to do is I want to do like an hour videos because that's all I can do for the free streaming.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I want to do like at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes of one person telling their story, and then
They're
take the last
powerful.
15 minutes and let other people on and do like a community like talk.
That's
Just for the
great.
last 15 minutes.
That's a good format.
Maybe a half an hour, but pretty much 15 minutes. And so my next one is actually going to have a certain person, and it's not going to be Sunday this time. It's going to be Wednesday on the 14th.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I just figure Wednesday might be a better day. It seemed like Sunday was a lot more problematic than
Well,
I
it was
thought
Mother's Day as well, so you may have.
Well, no, I don't mean just that particular Sunday. I had a
others.
couple of people say that they go to church and they're very,
Right. There are
So
times when you do YouTube and when you even put the videos out, the timing is important, and you can find that out through statistics. What is the best time for this? And you can also ask.
someone suggested Wednesdays was the one day that you never see it. You never really see too many lives. So
Right, that's when I used to do my Wednesday night live. Was always on a Wednesday.
Right.
I don't do it
So
anymore.
that you took yourself out so you can make room for me.
Did.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There you go. Use my Wednesday. I'll come on too. So, all right. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Right. You've been fantastic, Thomas. I hope to see you again real soon. I'm going to stop the recording here, and then we'll have a little chat before I leave. All right.
Okay.
All right.